Okay. Recently watched this video on Instagram about a guy talking about all the things that a nurse may experience at the bedside, like not eating, working long hours, short shifts, swap shifts, and so on and so forth, all the things that are very difficult when you become a nurse in a hospital setting, and which is where I worked. I will mention I have only worked in a hospital setting. I haven't worked in any other facility other than hospitals. And I will also mention that just as much as whatever is brought up affects nurses, also affects other members, other healthcare providers, and members that care for patients at the bedside, whether it be housekeeping or, and I always like to mention everybody. I mean, security, housekeeping, greeters, volunteers, anybody who is in a hospital setting. If you step into a hospital setting and you are there to assist, there are things you will see and things you might experience that are uncomfortable. However, I want to really bring up that there's also a lot of good that you see as well. This video talked about the stuff that is not so great, and I think it's important to also bring up the good things because there's a lot of people out there who want to be nurses and they want to make a change in the nursing field. And we do have a lot of great leaders and a lot of great educators. And I look forward to being part of that in my near future. The path that there's something better out there is possible. I'll start with my story. So I've been a nurse for 10 years, and I started with not knowing how much nurses made and not really knowing what nurses did. It was just something that everyone said, you'd be a great nurse. So I said, okay, sure, I'll give it a try. I was great academically, so it wasn't very difficult for me. Academically, it wasn't difficult. And I worked customer service jobs, so it seemed pretty well. But one of I quit one time nursing school, and my teacher asked, "Well, what do you really want?" And I said, "Well, I really want to travel. I need to figure out what it is that I really want to do." So I took some time off, realized, you know what, I let me just finish school, and so I decided to get my degree as a nurse. I decided that I wanted to travel early on, but I didn't know how. And most places were like, you have to have experience, one, and you have to at least have worked somewhere for 2 years or something of that sort. The other thing is, I was really interested in ICU and I wanted to be an ICU nurse, but most jobs that were available when I started were med-surg, tele, and most of the jobs that a lot of people has a high turnover of nurses. And it had to be night shift because new grads mostly get night shifts. And I didn't really argue the fact because it's not always accurate. But it is a good place to start because it's a little more, it helps build a little bit of that experience when you start nights. Anyhow, I got stuck in med-surg for like 4.5 years, and a bit of my heart still wanted to do ICU. I still wanted to do something more, and I was in one hospital for a year to learn my Spanish and I had a great team, but a part of me still wanted to leave home because I made it 60 miles away from home, but I still wanted to like leave home. So then I ended up transferring. I'm from Texas, from South Texas at that. I worked in Brownsville and then for HCA, and then I transferred over to Austin, Texas, and I worked for St. David's. Fantastic facilities when based off of customer service, but of course, the pace is fast when you're working for specialty units like orthopedics, which I did, and it can be tough time wise because your first couple years as a nurse, you need to learn time management. Oh man, I could ramble on. There's so much about nursing I love. I just I missed the bedside. I quit a few months ago. My last job because I moved elsewhere, and I've worked several positions. I've worked in different states. I wanted to travel after this time in Austin, and I got stuck. I didn't really want to quit my job because I appreciated my team, but then I was going through some changes, and I didn't know that what I was going through was burnout. And none of the nurses I was speaking with said, "Oh, you're burnt out." Everyone was like, "Oh, you're having a hard time." And of course, it wasn't hard at work as much because then I encountered a situation outside of work that made it hard. And I was caring for a friend who tried committing suicide. You still have that help complex mentality, and I had that. I have that. And I went to go help this person while I was working, and things were changing at work. To try to get some kind of recognition, the flow was a little bit different than how the unit worked was different, and so now I was having something different at home and then different at work, and I didn't understand what burnout was at all. But I was burnt out. I was starting to go through like okay, I need to quit my job. Like I stopped caring for my friend because I was like, okay, this is a bit much, getting out of work, then going to do this, and then they were going through some stuff, and I was not absorbing that very well. And then being at work and then absorbing all of that. And but nobody told me, you're probably burnt out and you're having a hard time. You probably need to take some time off. Most of the advice I got was, you could probably take some pills, right, for the depression, because I was starting to feel low, real low, exhausted, panic attacks. I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to do anything. Because deep down inside, I really wanted to travel, and I really wanted to do something different than med-surg. I just didn't know how to express myself, and I think that a lot of us don't know that. Some of us get stuck somewhere, and we don't know how to get out of that, which I learned to do and to get out of that. And now I'm trying different things, but I still love and miss the bedside. Travel nursing was a great escape for me. Now, contracts today are not like they were after COVID or during COVID or after COVID. Contracts are more or less how they were before. However, the contracts are very similar to how they were back in like 2017, 2018, when my rent was $300 because I was renting a room, $300 to $500 a month. Now you can't find rent for that much, and you're still getting paid the same. I don't understand that part. You still make enough, but a lot of people went into nursing because they wanted to make a little bit more so that they can get out of that rut, right? So they can get out of the rut of having to live paycheck to paycheck. But it turns out now, being a nurse, you're now working a job where you work paycheck to paycheck. And because the cost of living is higher, the food is higher, and now I didn't know how much nurses made when I started. So for me, it was like a great difference because I was working 2 to 3 jobs before this, going to nursing school. But I ramble on again. I love to speak, and I learn by speaking. So I appreciate you if you've watched this long. Nursing, I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and I was talking about how I wanted to work with nurses because there is a thing as I want to be a good nurse, and you are, and you will be. And I worked really hard to do that, and by doing research after work, didn't have to. Nobody told me, oh, in order for you to get better as a nurse, no, it's just like nursing school, NCLEX, get to it, and then whatever else you're given, like health modules and such that you have to meet when you're working in the hospital to stay freshened up on policies and procedures. But I did research on pain management. I did research on behavioral aspects of people, like, you know, when someone's depressed, when someone's isolated, because you're going to encounter these things when someone gets angry and throws stuff at you. I decided to do research on that. I even went on as far as to hiring a communication coach, because you're not really taught that. You're taught therapeutic communication in nursing school, but they don't really continue. Out of all the hospitals I went to, some will, but it's kind of like volunteer based. And a lot of it was mostly for evidence-based practice, which is fantastic, but evidence-based practice on infection protocols and such. And then there were some programs where they would help you communicate, and they try to give you like a quick fix, right? A quick fix to how to do it, right? Like there's the head, heart, head, or which is first you speak with your mind, then you speak from your heart, then you go back to mind, right? But you kind of have that balance, because there's a lot in the medical field that you can't just speak from the heart, because there's a lot of things that are very technical and scientific, like, you know, you have your objective and you have your subjective. Objective, subjective. And I'm sure you learned that in nursing school when you're doing nursing care plans. Objective, subjective. How you're feeling, right? Versus like logical, like I took a vital sign, this is a number, this is the measurement. And here is how are you feeling? What's going on? I see that you're doing this. There's many ways to communicate. But one that I really learned a lot from the program that I'm in, and I also integrate this in not just my death and dying with grace system, where accepting death as something natural and part of everything, and the other one is leadership at the bedside. I truly believe that every person, whether it be security, anybody, any of you, security, housekeeping, nurses, CNAs, I have just learned throughout the years that everybody is a leader at the bedside. Every single person, even the patient is a leader, the family is a leader. Everyone that enters a hospital setting is a leader. Even outside of, you are a leader, period. That is what I believe. And I believe that. Why? Because it empowers us to be who we truly are. It empowers us to speak up when we don't know what we're really talking about, but it allows others to hear us, and perhaps someone might understand what we're saying, what we're trying to get to. Because sometimes we don't always have the answers, and that's okay. But I truly believe that everybody is a leader at the bedside. And one of the things I learned through this communication coaching, which I do now, is make everybody right. Everybody has their own perspective. And just because your perspective is different from theirs doesn't make them wrong. It makes them right in their view. Now, it just might be different. It's different from how you're viewing something. But in nursing at the bedside, and even for anyone who is doing patient care, taking a step back and saying, I see what you're saying, if you do see it. And if you don't see what they're saying, you're like, I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean, right? But you know, help me understand you. I really like the part with Jerry McGuire, who is Lee Steinberg, and he did a great Super Bowl party, which is about brain health, this couple weeks ago in Louisiana, and I was so grateful to make it out there. But one of the things that, you know, he was so frustrated in the movie Jerry McGuire. He was so frustrated, right? He was extremely frustrated about, like, he couldn't help this one client, right? This one client to just do what he needed to do to get the kind of contract that he needed. But he didn't want to change his client because he's like, you are who you are, right? But work with me, right? Help me help you. Like, what can I do to help? If you're not going to change and you're not going to, make leeway here because you want to get, you're stuck in your perspective. I get it, but help me help you, because I don't know what else to do. Like, can we both work together? And that is exactly what it's like as a nurse. Help me help you. Because they're going to encounter so much in healthcare. You're going to deal with long-term patients and short-term patients. Long-term patients are people who keep coming back who have chronic pain, maybe surgeries that went wrong, or they're still dealing with maybe taking care of their high blood pressure or their diabetes, and things keep coming up. And then there's also, what's the other one? Short-term patients, which is they got a broken leg, or they had an accident, or they came in because they had something with their brain, like a TIA, or a TIA, or they had a mini stroke, but they were fine. Short term, long term. But oh man, I love that part of the movie, and Lee Steinberg is a fantastic person to follow, to see how he works with his clients and how you can work with your patients at the bedside as well. And again, I'm more than happy to help. If this sounds like something that you would like to do, follow me or subscribe to Zenith Nurse, to become that Zenith Nurse that you are, that you want to be. This is for leaders. This is for anybody who is interested in this kind of stuff. I truly believe that, again, we're all leaders at the bedside, and if there's anything I can do to assist in your transition from a new nurse into the field, or from an experienced nurse who doesn't know what to do with the career anymore, or a leader who really wants to make a difference but needs to learn how to communicate with much higher leadership, or wants to learn how to speak to their team, let me know. Okay, I'm more than happy to be part of that, and to help me help you. And don't forget that one. The other one, and so two things in this conversation is help me help you. Watch Jerry McGuire and follow Lee Steinberg, because he's amazing. He's on LinkedIn. And he has new stuff coming up. Also, with Sage University, who I am linked with, to have learned a lot of this communication tools, and the biggest one is make everyone right. That is the hardest thing for everybody, but I can coach you through that and make everyone right, because how you see things is very different how someone else sees it, and vice versa. And that's okay. It's all about communication, appreciation, and just, you are a good nurse. Or you are a good in any subject matter entering the hospital. You're fantastic. And I'm thankful if you do work at the bedside. Thank you for working at the bedside and remaining a great nurse. If you're having a hard time and you're starting to feel like you're a bad nurse, don't worry about it. Take some time for you, because that's probably burnout. Thanks for listening, my fantastic Zenith nurses, and take care, and I'll see you next time.